Live from downtown Lansing, you're listening to the Spartan Beat with your hosts, Corey Robinson and Justin Finn.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Spartan Beat. I'm Justin Finn. I'm here with my co-host Corey Robinson. And today we have two guests joining us here at the same time, and they are former Spartans, Jalen Watts-Jackson and Darian Hicks. Thanks a lot for joining us today, guys. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, and yourself?
I'm doing good.
Good.
All right, so right away, we will go ahead and jump into the beginning of your guys' timeline and how you ended up at Michigan State. So do you guys kind of want to summarize and run through your recruitments and just like what you saw from Michigan State, maybe what you remember from the visits, and I guess kind of just why you ended up at Michigan State?
You can go ahead first, Darien.
All right. So when I first went to Michigan State, it was a junior day. And, got up to campus, just saw how big it was, and it put me in awe. Got to tour the facility, met all the coaches, then went to go eat at Case Hall, which is delicious, I will say, delicious. After that, we went to a basketball game. And then within the basketball game, it was just live energy. The atmosphere was crazy. So it made me fall in love with the place immediately. And, I still took visits to other places, but when it was all said and done, I realized that Michigan State was the place to go for me.
Yeah, so definitely. So what about you, Jalen? What was stuck out about your recruitment? I know you being an in-state guy, you grew up around watching Michigan State and all that, but what was kind of your timeline for your recruitment and why Michigan State?
To me, Michigan State was just a little special. At the beginning of my recruitment, I wasn't, and camps are huge now, you go to camps, you perform well, you don't get offers. I feel like my time, or like a little bit around Darian's time, is when camps kind of first became like such a big involvement in recruiting. So at the beginning of my recruiting, I was just kind of like, I never really went to camps. I got interest off of playing and things like that. But when it came to going to camps, and I went to a couple different camps, it was just something different about how I bonded with the coaches at Michigan State. We had Coach Barnett there, and he was a great guy. Still to this day, I speak to Coach Barnett every now and then. But I would say the biggest difference about Michigan State than any other school I was involved in is just when I came for my recruiting visit, or rather I came for a game, I already felt like I was a part of the team, as soon as I got around everybody. So I think that was a driving factor for me as far as recruitment and everything. And Darian, actually, which is funny because he was my he was my host for my official visit. So it's ironic that we're on this call here together today.
Yeah, that is funny. And then being part of that famed no-fly zone at the time, where they were considered definitely the top defense, and the DBs were a big part of that. But I guess, talking about while you're at Michigan State, what were your guys' favorite memories? It could be on the field, off the field. Obviously, with Jalen, you can't talk about the play yet, but everything else that you had. But yeah, just what was the things that you remember now and that you're going to remember like 40 years from now when you think about your time at Michigan State?
I would say, so I got two things kind of. The one was like Tuesday practices. They used to call them Tough Talk Tuesdays, because everybody it was something about Tuesday practice that kind of had everybody like, I wouldn't say everybody was like mad or anything, but everybody just always came to practice different on Tuesday. So Tuesday was always fun for me. It was always competitive and everything like that. And I'd say my second favorite memories at MSU would be that Big Ten championship 2015. Like, after we won that, and, like, especially after we won it after such a crazy play, it was just a hell of a time to be alive, it felt like, at the moment. It was our first year going to the college football playoffs, and it was just, altogether was a great experience.
Darian, you want to go ahead?
First of all, Jalen, appreciate the shout out, my brother. My favorite memories at MSU. For me, I'm gonna just say the whole junior year experience for me, just because obviously I had missed all the fall camp with Mono, so I was getting back into the swing of things. Then got to play Oregon, which was a crazy game, night game. Struck the stadium, wore New Jerseys. So much fun. Then we, obviously everything that happened within that season, from even us losing to Nebraska, that was just a crazy finish just because of what had happened. But in a sense, it was kind of like we needed that. Because after that, it was just, played Maryland, played Ohio State, at Ohio State, which was tons of fun. Very bad weather, but still tons of fun, And then playing Penn State at home to clinch the division, and then going to the Big Ten Championship. Everything that happened in that game was especially crazy, And like Jalen said, just the shock of it, like at the end, you realize I'm like going to the playoffs. It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, those are obviously some really great memories, and I know I wasn't a student yet at that time, but that was kind of what ingrained Michigan State being a great program into my mind when that junior season of yours was happening and you guys were going to the playoff. And I know that blowout against Penn State where Jack Allen scored a touchdown, and those are all definitely some great memories. So speaking of memories, what do you remember as a funny Coach D story, or just, I guess, something that people would find interesting that you guys recall on any given day? So, just one. You guys share like a funny Coach D story, I guess.
Mine is like kind of more personal to me and another player, Vayante Copeland, who went there at the time. But so freshman year, because coming into college, especially before you get to college, like, you never really know, like, if you're seen as like small or big or whatever the case may be. And honestly, before college, it's not like I was crushing the weights or anything like that. But I never really saw myself as like one of the bigger DBs in the group, especially like being my redshirt freshman year. So like I ate whatever I wanted, like, whatever the case may be. But towards the end of that first semester, I was a little heavy. And I always tell everybody, like, man, all y'all let me get fat and nobody said anything to me. But one day I was walking out of practice and Coach D pulled me to the side, me and Vayante, and he looked us dead in the eyes. He was like, I want to play you guys. He's like, but I can't play you with all that junk in the trunk. He's like, and then he said, every time we have meetings after practice, all the coaches, we sit up and call you the Fat Twins. He's like, you don't want to be called the Fat Twins. So that was always a funny Coach D moment for me.
All right, Darren, see if you can top that one.
I most definitely can't, but I'm going to say a funny Coach D story that happened with me.
Or it can even be something that just seems like out of character for Coach D that fans might not expect him to do, or anything of that nature as well.
Well, I will say that this was my freshman year, and like and obviously I met Coach D before that and all that stuff, but he was a real, real stern, tough man. That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I came in like freshman year, just walking through the football building, and I just started giving coaches a thumbs up. I don't know why, I don't know how, but I just started doing it. So after that, almost every coach started doing that back to me. And it really caught me off guard when I seen Coach D do it like every single time when he saw me. And I was just kind of like, I'm thinking, I'm like, wow, this man really, cares. He gives me a thumbs up back. Can't believe it. Boy, I don't make it.
So have you guys been able to kind of keep in touch? I know everybody moves on, they do their own thing, but do you guys get to talk with Coach D still to this day, kind of every now and then? Does he hit you up or vice versa?
I haven't talked to Coach D in a while. Last I've seen Coach D was probably like the end of 2019-ish. I saw him at Whole Foods. So
nice. So I guess if you want to tell everybody, what are you guys doing now after you got out of college, and how did Michigan State prepare you just in the classroom and with like the coaches, where they kind of just teach you that discipline and how to attack things?
Well, I worked in a dealership, and I would say the biggest thing Michigan State, or kind of just football in general, taught me about working with different people every day. It's kind of being patient with people, kind of being more understanding of where people are coming from, rather it be on the religious stance or political or whatever the case may be. And kind of just being all right with, not everything has to be like, oh, if you think differently than me, then I got to tell you my opinion and why I think that. Sometimes it's just, you just got to listen to people and let them get out what they're going to say and think whatever you're going to think about it in your head, I'll say that's the biggest thing that came from football for me, because in football, I feel like in all competitive things, like everyone has their own way of doing something. And then when you try to, tell them like, oh, well, I think this, that, it brings out the competitiveness in people, and it turns into an argument. So I think that's the biggest thing I've taken from football.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I work for this company, Superior Beverage Group, and I also coach high school football. And I will say that Michigan State, like Jalen said, patience is really one thing. Just, coworkers, having to coach, 14 to 17-year-olds. It teaches football and just everything in college teaches you patience. And, like he said, just listen to people, letting them say what they got to say, but you're just not giving them the energy to, you're just not responding back. It's really taught me just a whole lot. But
for sure.
Also, it taught me to keep an open mind with people.
For sure. So, Darian, I know you have to hop off soon, but the last question I want to ask both of you while you're both still here is the week leading up to the Michigan game, the preparation, the intensity. Can you just talk about how that week is different than kind of most of the other weeks, or I guess if it's different, and how so?
So, leading up to Michigan, I will say that whole week is just on 10. Especially everybody from Michigan. All the ones on the team that are from Michigan, they're especially on one, and which you love to see it. So not only does that amplify our team, but it also gets the dudes hyped from, the other schools like Ohio. We get hyped for them. It's like, all right, yeah, this means, this is personal. obviously we don't know because we're not from here. We don't know exactly what kind of in-state rivalry it really is. But until you get out there, and then, it's just, you come in the woodshed and you just don't make it out.
Yeah, for sure. I know that's what a lot of players say. Jalen, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say it's the most important, like one of the most important games of the year. Rather it be, even if we go to the national championship, like Michigan, the Michigan game is going to be right there with that. Like Darian said, it's the most intense week of practice you'll ever have, more intense than any week of camp practice, more intense because everybody's just so on edge. And for some reason, like, people from Michigan think, like, if you went to Michigan State, like, Michigan just didn't want you or you weren't good enough, even though, this past decade has obviously shown different. I just think it gets personal to everyone. They play all the videos to hype us up, all the old disrespect videos that we used to get towards us and all that. So it's definitely an intense week and different than any other week of practice that you'll have. Like I was talking about Tough Talk Tuesdays and things like that. During Michigan week, you'll come out to practice and you'll get done with like warming up. And when the first period, you'll just hear Coach D like, all right, it's live. Like, damn, all right.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so.
Oh, yeah. He means business that week.
They definitely try to make sure everybody's ready that week, whether it be you're a starter, second string, third string, scout team. Everybody comes in with a different mindset during that week.
Yeah, that's great insight. Darren, we really appreciate you joining us and spending some time with us. Jalen, we're going to keep it rolling here, and we're going to go ahead and talk about, as you probably expected, the trouble with the snap. So, I guess first off, the question that I was kind of wondering is, how often do people kind of bring it up to you? Like, if they ever see you at the dealership or just at the store, like, how many times, I guess, in a month do you kind of get asked or talked about with that play?
Well, I always tell people it's different for football. Football, you wear helmets and things like that, so it's kind of harder for people to see you by face and be like, oh, that's him, especially me since I have dreads or I have hair. And, of course, my hair is a lot longer than what it recently was. But usually, like, I'll tell people my name, even at the dealership out in public, like, and they're like, oh, what's your name? And I tell them my name, and I'll just say Jalen. And then they're kind of, like, ask me, like, well, what's your last name? And I'll just say Watts. And then usually they're like, oh, I know, I remember. And I always tell people, like, the greatest thing about the play to me is I feel like it's something I can share with everybody who witnessed it happen. Like, literally everybody who's ever seen the play, they always start telling me, where they were, what they were doing, who they were with, just random stuff about the play. So I feel like that's the greatest gift of it all. It's something I can share with people who even aren't Michigan State fans. And I know I could share it with a bunch of Michigan fans. They're going to tell me their crazy stories. But
That's funny. Yeah, I'll tell you my story, actually. I was watching the game, and this was before I was in any form of media, so I didn't have to hold my emotions then or whatever. But I remember watching that snap and just like stewing because like losing to Michigan, especially in that stretch, was just embarrassing. You just don't do that. You guys owned them for a long stretch. So I'm sitting there watching the play, and as soon as it got away from him and you scoop that ball up, that was probably the first game I ever watched with my now wife too, and I just started going crazy, screaming and jumping. I probably did like a 46-inch vertical about 20 times while you were running that in, yelling at Edmondson to set the block, all of that. But yeah, that's definitely one of those plays that you always remember what you were doing and your reaction to it.
Yeah, it's hilarious. The funniest story I probably heard about it is a guy, Michigan State fan, and they were all watching, and they had their neighbors over who were Michigan fans, and it got down to the last play, and he went upstairs and locked himself in a room, And then his wife, I guess, went and got him, like, after everything transpired. Was, like, banging on the door, like, come out, like, they won. And he was pissed at her, like, yelling at her, like, don't play with me. It's no way they won. And then I guess in the midst of her, like, telling him, like, come out, they won, he watched it on his phone. And I guess he forgot to open the door. He just, I guess, tried to run straight through the door and broke his nose. So I think that was the funniest story, like, to me.
How much did your life change just off of that one play where, before you're starting to make a name for yourself at Michigan State, but, obviously you weren't a household name at that point. But so how was it, like, waking up, that next day or that next week and just the absolute attention that everybody knew your name and everybody knew the play? How much did that just change your life even on campus?
I would say it definitely changed my life a lot. Not so much in the aspect that people would think, like, oh, I was a campus hit. Like, you all remember after the play, like, I couldn't walk at all for 3 months. So, like, I pretty much just stayed to myself for 3 months. And before the play, I kind of was a to myself person already, So it was a big adjustment I had to make, just being, reaching out to people or people reaching out to me and, speaking with them about the play and doing interviews and all that. Like, it was always something like I've done. Like, I've done plenty of interviews in high school, but it was just different, And like I say, even now, to meet complete strangers or stuff like that and meet people on the airplane and they already know who I am, this is a totally different
Yeah.
I would say, like, a different attention that I was used to getting.
So while you had the ball in your hands and you were running down the field, was your original plan to go out of bounds so that they can kick the field goal, or was your plan always to get to the end zone no matter what at all costs?
Well, once I got the ball secured and I realized what was going on, because it was all off instinct, but, like, I would say, like, once I got the ball in the first couple steps, I was damn near blacked out. Like, what the hell is happening right now? Because it's not like no matter what anybody says, like, I would say 99.8% of us did not, expect to win that game walking out of the field. Like, we walking off the field.
Right.
And, like, people are crying already and shit like that. And, Coach D gave us the speech and everything, but, that's his job as a coach. Like, you don't think in your head, like, oh, Coach D think we really about to win this, so let's go out here and win. Like, but I know one thing is for sure, two things for certain. Nobody wanted to be the person on that last play lollygagging, because that was going to be some whole other issues you had to deal with at film. But so we all just went out there and kind of did our thing. But once I got the ball, my original plan, once I realized, like, shit, it's all like I got the ball. I originally looked up at the clock, and there was only like 6 seconds left. So I started running towards the sideline, and by the time I got to where I could actually get out of bounds, like, it was about 3 seconds left, realistically. But then I've noticed, like, it was only one guy in front of me and Jermaine, who was right there, like, to block. And Jermaine was looking me dead in my eyes. Like, I'm running, he's running, looking directly at me, not even at the guy in front of him. So I don't even know if I made a real noise because I had my mouth guard in. I just started making noise like, Darian. And he turned around and picked up the block. And from there, I'm like, damn, now I might as well try to score.
Right before the ball was snapped, were you guys trying to do anything to distract either the long snapper or the punter? Was there, like, a lot of, like, screaming and yelling going on?
Well, my job was just to kind of make a gap. So I just was supposed to rush and like, try to blast and pull the left wall guy because they got a wall, before the punter. And I kind of went past him and kind of pivoted him to the side. And as I got past him, I just saw the ball just already floating in the air. So I wouldn't say my job wasn't to be a punt blocker. I wasn't supposed to block the punt. Mm-hmm. I just was supposed to open up a gap for, the left blocker. And Grayson and Matt got off the ball so quick. it just was, man, it was all crazy.
So how was it though? Because I imagine like the sheer happiness of you crossing that end zone and knowing what happened, but then at the same point that excruciating pain. At the same point, like what was it kind of like to just kind of be like so happy and so painful at the same time? And because I imagine that had to be one of the more painful things you dealt with.
Yeah, and honestly, like when it first happened, for me, the first time I was happy about the play is when they were rolling me out the tunnel on the cart. Like before that, it was all get the hell off of me.
Yeah.
What's wrong with y'all? And because like you said, I was in pain. And Dave Yeager, he was like one of the main trainers at the time. Like he ran over to me. He's like, "You did it!" He started shaking my knee of my hip that was broken. I'm like, "Stop!" And he was like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "My hip is broke." Like I diagnosed myself. I already knew what was going on. I'm like, "My hip is broke." And he reached in there. He's like, "No, you're good. I feel it. It's all good. I feel the hip in there." And I looked him in the eyes and said, "Dave, my hip is broke."
I work in an emergency department, and people that know when they break their hip for sure before our pictures are taken.
Yeah, it's like, man, like it was just crazy, and like everybody around me was so excited. I was such the downer, but. Like I say, once they got me on the cart, I'm like, oh man, thank God, I'm all right. I think I'm gonna be all right. At least we win the game.
Yeah.
So I was definitely grateful. And then, I don't know. Like I say, it was a great moment. It was a great feeling, and the fact that I don't have any problems with my hip now, I was able to come back and play. All by the grace of God, I have no bitter feelings towards the play by any means.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So I guess just a couple speed questions here at the end. What was your favorite place to eat at in East Lansing when you were there?
I actually still live in this area, so it's probably not my favorite place anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say it would either be between UCI up here is nice. I enjoy going to UCI still to this day, and of course, Eastside Fish Fry. You gotta get you some cracked chicken if you come up here and eat some chicken. For
sure, yeah. If you didn't say Eastside, I was gonna have an issue with that. So good answer.
Yeah, I had to give my nice spot and then double back with the Eastside because
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so what artists do you listen to these days? What's in your playlist?
Ooh. I would say I listen to a lot of old school music, honestly, like old school R&B and stuff like that. I listen to like Rick James. I listen to like Anita Baker. But like for my new artists, I would say I listen to like Lil Baby.
Okay.
Gunna, But I would say Lil Baby is probably like my favorite newer artist, definitely.
All right, respect. Yeah, Lil Baby's in my top 3 for sure, so I see you there. Okay, so what do you do in your spare time when you're not over there being a great car salesman? What are you watching? What are you doing? Like, what do you do these days? Spare time.
Oh man, you gonna make me let everybody know I'm a weirdo now. Like I listen to old school music.
That's why we brought you on here.
I'm old. I go to work and sit on the couch, so
I try to stay up on cutting the grass. Man, it's one of my least favorite chores. I'm big. I like cooking shows, to be honest. Like I watch Chopped and I still watch the Guy Fieri diners, drive-ins and dives. Like that's my stuff. I'm rewatching Criminal Minds for like the 5th time now. So like I'm really kind of lame. Like it's not like I'm coming home and building sheds and but I'm gonna work into that.
I respect that. I've seen Criminal Minds 3 or 4 times, so I respect that for sure.
Yeah.
Corey, you got anything else for Jalen?
No, I think I'm pretty much set, but I just want to thank you for coming on. I know they keep you really busy and all of that at work, so I definitely appreciate you coming on and telling everybody about your story and just your time at Michigan State.
Yeah, I know it's probably gotten old for you, but I know all the Michigan State fans can never get tired of hearing about that place, so we do really appreciate your time.
Oh, yeah, anytime. Definitely. I appreciate you guys for having me.
For sure. All right, guys, we'll be right back after this break, and we'll be talking some Michigan State recruiting.
Call it a sense of purpose, a higher calling, essential to our children's future. We call it our passion at Dean Transportation. We are a family, hardworking folks who for more than 60 years have connected children to learning, schools to our communities, and you to a better career, pioneering the best in health and safety standards because it's simply what we do, because safe student transportation has always been essential. Dean is now hiring community-focused individuals for immediate school bus driver, attendant, and mechanic positions for local schools throughout mid-Michigan. To learn more, visit jobs@dean.com/Lansing. Experienced applicants will receive up to a $750 sign-on bonus. For individuals with no prior experience, Dean will pay you to train. Positions may also allow you to start and stop work from local parking locations or your home throughout mid-Michigan. If you're looking to make the community a better place, we'll put you in the driver's seat. Join the Dean Transportation family today at jobs@dean.com/Lansing.
Thinking of a new air conditioning unit for your home? Hi, Peggy Doty with Doty Mechanical. A new Carrier high-efficiency AC unit will lower your energy usage and increase your home comfort. Current Carrier Cool Cash offers and available utility rebates mean your savings have never been better.
Call Doty Mechanical today at 327-7777 or visit us at dotymechanical.com for your free estimate. For heating and cooling, the names to know, Doty Mechanical and Carrier. Turn to the experts.
Jack Ebling here with Forest Acres course manager Brian Harris. Brian, it's just about time for some new product. You've got them all here at Acres and terrific club fitting.
Yeah, we've got some of the best club fitting in the state of Michigan. We utilize the TrackMan technology with all the major brands. So if you're looking for clubs for yourself or that special person in your life, then we're the place to go.
Lots of different manufacturers.
Lots of different ones from all the major brands, Titleist, Callaway, Ping, and more. So please come see us for your club fitting today.
Stop out at Forest Acres. Take care of your golf game.
Trust matters, especially when it's your money. Mark and Jay at North Coast Wealth Management work hard to build a relationship of trust by providing thoughtful, objective guidance and placing your interests first. Invest with knowledgeable financial advisors who are on your side. Call today and tell them you're a friend of the show for a no-cost, no-obligation consultation. 248-626-2000 and ask for Mark or Jay. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. President Biden is expected to outline a coronavirus vaccination requirement for federal workers tomorrow. The White House is being careful to label it a requirement and not a mandate. Federal employees and government contractors would reportedly have to prove they've been fully vaccinated or agree to regular COVID testing. The move is a response to growing concerns about the rapid spread of the Delta variant. The Federal Reserve is leaving interest rates at their historic lows.
The Federal Open Market Committee kept interest rates near zero and maintained our asset purchases. These measures, along with our strong guidance on interest rates, will ensure that monetary policy will continue to support the economy.
The central bank met and did not make any major changes to the policy they have pursued to steer the nation out of economic trouble caused by the coronavirus pandemic. One key item investors are looking at is when will the Fed start slowing its monthly bond purchases to keep a lot of cash in the economy. The White House is calling the bipartisan infrastructure agreement a once-in-a-generation investment. A group of Republican and Democratic senators have been working for weeks to come to an agreement on upgrading the nation's nation's infrastructure. Texas Governor Greg Abbott is ordering limits on the ground transportation of migrants detained by Customs and Border Protection.
He issued an executive order Wednesday saying only local, state, and federal law enforcement could transport illegal immigrant suspects. Abbott is also giving Texas Department of Public Safety the power to pull over vehicles suspected of transporting migrants and send them back to their port of entry. Abbott says it will reduce the risk of coronavirus moving through communities. I'm Lisa Taylor.
The CEO of Pfizer is announcing the effectiveness of its COVID-19 vaccine declines over time. Albert Bourla says the vaccine drops to around 84%, about 4 to 6 months after the second dose. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio.
The Spartan Beat.
Jalen! Watts! Jackson!
Spotlight Radio Network.
And we're back for the second half of today's Spartan Beat episode. Today we'll have more time than usual to discuss some recruiting. I know the last couple of weeks we've had several guys on the show, and we usually only had about 5 or 10 minutes, but today we are going to dive into some of the recent developments. First off, we will start with MSU's newest commit. It's a guy that most people haven't heard of. His name is Antonio Gates Jr. No, I'm just kidding. That's the guy that we've been asked about a ton. I guess all the way since he first announced his commitment date of October 10th, 2020. And then at that time, he delayed it once, and then I believe he was going to commit a second time. That also got delayed. Might have even been a couple other close calls in there that the public didn't know, but finally he decided that he was ready to go ahead and commit. His dad kind of encouraged / gave him the green light to do so this time. And he ended up committing to Michigan State on Monday. We heard that this was probably going to happen while we were at Michigan State's camp on Sunday. And that's kind of where all these, mine and Corey's new crystal balls got inputted based off of. And we had heard that it was going to be very, very imminent. That basically is exactly what happened, as Antonio committed the very next day. Gates is from Dearborn Fordson High School. He's a 4-star, and he is Michigan State's highest ranked commit in this year's class. The second highest for Mel Tucker, as Ma'a Nauteote, I believe, is the only one that's higher. And I know a lot of national media even covered this, obviously due to the angle of Antonio Sr. and his first ballot Hall of Fame career with the Chargers, and he played at Michigan State for a bit. I guess I should say he was enrolled at Michigan State for a bit, but ended up transferring to pursue basketball, and so now his son gets to come to Michigan State and kind of see what he can do with his career here. Corey, what are your thoughts on this commitment? What are your thoughts on Antonio Gates Jr.? And just go ahead and give us some feedback.
Yeah, as far as the commitment and how you had mentioned earlier, how he was kind of close a few times and never did it. That's definitely, I know why both of us waited to put a crystal ball in, just because of all the fluidity. We always thought he was going to be at Michigan State, but sometimes it becomes a numbers game. So we basically both went with the mindset, which is the same thing that we'll do with Dylan Tatum, however that plays out, is until we know that there's a commitment date and it's really happening, and it's close. That's kind of how we both decided whether we were going to put one in. But I mean, I'm sure you were just like me, where we knew that it was probably Michigan State. It just came whether he waited too long and lost his spot. But as far as the impact, Mel Tucker, he wants to recruit the state really well, and Antonio Gates is the number 5 player in the state according to 24/7 Sports. So that gives you a top 5 guy in state. Antonio Gates Jr. being the son of Antonio Gates Sr., that's a huge name grab too for the program, where you mentioned you got a lot of coverage from the national media, even San Diego stuff. I would see like places that covered the Chargers were talking about it. So that's great publicity on the West Coast, where Mel Tucker has done a lot of good things already for the program, bringing in some great players from the West Coast. So that's another angle there of it. And then as far as on the football field, you get a 6'1", 185-pound guy. He's more of a possession receiver right now, but he's got that big, thick build on the upper body that you like to see out of a possession receiver, whether it had been a B.J. Cunningham in the past or even, what's his name, Cody White more recently. I think he's faster than Cody White, maybe a little bit faster than B.J. Cunningham, probably pretty comparable. But he's a guy that if he gets here and absolutely buys in to the weight room and the nutrition and all of that stuff, he's a guy that still can change his body quite a bit for the positive, where you're going to see a guy that could get more explosive and faster overall. He already shows great hands and powerful hands where he can make those 50-50 balls with tight coverage. He's a pretty good route runner. He's able to set up guys. I mean, I know after he committed, or I think maybe it was before he committed, somebody had posted a video of him toasting Michigan commit Will Johnson, who's ranked number 1 in the state right now, and I think the 34th player in the country according to 247, and I think he's even higher in the composite. But so that got everybody excited, just seeing his route running. And at that same camp, I think he burned them like 3 or 4 other times too, but that was more of the internet grab one, I guess, that everybody liked to see. But yeah, he's a strong wide receiver, and I think he's somebody that should be able to challenge for playing time pretty early into his career, as long as he puts in all of the necessary work that is necessary to make it at this level, because he's already going to come in with a higher football understanding from spending time with his dad and picking his brain, and then physically he's ready to roll for the most part, as he'll be able to tighten that up too. So definitely a exciting get for the Spartans, and I thought you saw the fan base really explode, because they've been kind of waiting for that top 5 type of player from the state of Michigan.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like you're saying, if he comes in and he buys in, then he should be a very, very fun prospect to watch over these next few years. Speaking of prospects to watch, though, somebody who I had said for months that you were also in the same boat, I believe, that Kevin Thomas, one of the better receivers out there, definitely underrated. Possibly was even looking like at one time one of the most talented receivers Michigan State was going after. I think came in a little undersized at his visit than his listed 6'3". I believe it was much closer to 6 foot or even below that. He's been a guy that there's been a lot of curiosity around of how Michigan State's going to approach that recruitment and just kind of what's happening there. And he was supposed to announce his commitment today, which is Wednesday, July 28th. And so he decided to not go ahead and make that commitment. I know on Sunday night, Coach Mel Tucker had a talk with Kevin Thomas, and I had talked to Thomas's mom, Annette, about that the next day. Mrs. Thomas basically said that they didn't exactly try to make a push to land him or anything like that, but Mel went ahead and conveyed that they're still going to be recruiting him. I guess the implication was going forward they would be recruiting him, meaning that even after Gates committed, even though he had not committed at that point Sunday night. But Tucker wanted to convey that he would be on their radar, I guess, for the time to come, despite whatever happened with Gates, and even if they have 3 wide receivers. So That's interesting. I wouldn't have expected them to still be keeping tabs on Kevin Thomas. Well, actually, I would expect them to keep tabs, but I wouldn't expect such a direct call from Mel saying that he is going to be a target. Even though I always thought that Kevin Thomas might have been the most talented receiver out of the realistic group on Michigan State's board. So, Corey, what do you think? Am I the only one that's kind of surprised about possibly considering a fourth wide receiver? Or I guess just what is your overall take on what's transpired here recently?
Yeah, they had talked about they would take a fourth one if it's the right guy. And obviously it wasn't a slam dunk whether or not Kevin Thomas will be that right guy. Yeah. But by him delaying the decision, that allows everything to work out perfectly for Michigan State as far as where their involvement is going to go with it. Because the big thing that we heard outside of the size a little bit was that he's a guy that missed his junior season, so they had no tape on him, and they kind of wanted to see what he looks like post-injury, all of that stuff, see if he's still that same guy that they fell in love with off of sophomore film. So now with him pushing that back, now they actually get the chance to watch him have some tape, put some tape out there senior year. And if he shows on the tape that, yeah, he's still that same guy with that great track speed, that is a big playmaker and can make plays after the catch, then I think he falls into that category of that we will take him as the fourth wide receiver. If they don't see enough to convince them, then they can kind of just move on with it. So the decision on the 28th was perfect for Michigan State and what they wanted to do with this recruitment.
Yeah, exactly. Not sure if they would have pounced on him currently in today's date, but like you said, Thomas has now given himself the ability to kind of earn that from the staff here as he goes into his senior season, so that's good to hear. I always liked his speed. Always thought he would be a good prospect, so that's that on Kevin Thomas. So I guess one thing I wanted to touch on was the camp that I was in attendance on Sunday. I know you were hard at work in the hospital that day, but so the camp that Michigan State hosted on Sunday had guys that were coming in from all over the state, all over the nation actually, and then also all over the world. So they had 2023 5-star quarterback Dante Moore there. He did a tour with the staff. I actually saw like 3 or 4 different staff members take him on an individual tour throughout the day. So he was getting a lot of attention. And then Jonathan Slack, the 2023 offensive lineman, same sort of deal there. A lot of guys from the region that don't have offers, that were trying to earn offers, obviously. There's a 2024 quarterback, Marcos Davila from Texas, who came all the way up here from down there, as Jay Johnson had been talking to him since January. And he's a quarterback that could get an offer in 2024, so he's somebody to watch. And then one of the most intriguing storylines for me was the group of, I want to say 20-ish international prospects that came with PPI, which is the international group where they kind of group guys together from England, Germany, Austria, all sorts of countries from Europe, and kind of bring them on a tour here so that these guys can see all these campuses. And right when those guys walked in, I immediately pointed them out to Alan. I was like, most of these guys look much different than everybody else here in attendance at the camp. So those guys were coming in at 6'4", 6'3", 6'6", just looking much different than all the other kids from Indiana and Illinois and Michigan that were at the camp. So that was intriguing to see. And one of them, Kofi Taylor Barracks, left with an offer. And then I believe there were 2 DNs that put up good numbers and are in consideration of an offer. So, Corey, do you want to talk a little bit about just what that group is about, and even just, I guess, Kofi Taylor Barracks? Because I know he's somebody that we've talked about it before. These guys are not going to have the opportunity to make tons of trips to the U.S., so Michigan State might not get tons of challengers. I guess it depends what kind of film he gets on himself senior year, but this is a guy that could be someone to watch closely, I would kind of guess.
Yeah, and like you said, he's physically, he's just built differently than a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And to see him be able to move the way he moves already, and he plays with a good physicality, which you would obviously guess looking at him, but that's not always the case. There's a lot of guys that look the part but don't play it. He's a guy that seeks making physical contact, so obviously that's appealing to them, because if you follow the recruiting, linebacker's not really a spot that they were necessarily going to take to in this class. So that tells me that for him to pull that offer and actually really pull it pretty much immediately after the camp performance, that tells you how impressive he was in front of the coaches. And then not being able to get around everywhere, because that's still tough to get from places like Europe and all that stuff here. So that kind of limited his exposure. So now you're going to see him take a couple of visits. I believe they were at Notre Dame today, or maybe yesterday. It's hard to keep up with them. Cincinnati, I believe they went to, or they're going to. So there's not going to be a lot of competition, and Michigan State's already got kind of the book on them, seeing them in person. So that's one of those guys that could end up in this class where he kind of came out of nowhere.
For sure, yeah. He was a guy that's 6'3", 220, ran a 4.6 40. Personally, I whether he's outside line, I think he could play outside linebacker because he's also getting coverage from the limited tape I saw, but that's a guy that I would not mind being the second defensive end in the class either. So very intriguing prospect there. Speaking of visitors, I know those were all guys that were at that one camp, but Michigan State also had Peyton Kirkland visit Michigan State yesterday. I put out an article on that this morning. Amir Herring also visited Michigan State. I think Sean Shearer will have an article on that coming out soon. Also on last Sunday, MSU commit Michael Masunis visited Michigan State, even though he just had an official last month. So kind of shows you another guy who just loves Michigan State so much that just came over here twice in 2 months. There's that theme is also repeated once you start talking about this weekend's upcoming Spartan Dawg Con event. Michigan State has lots of current commits coming there. I know you have reported that Tyrell Henry, Gavin Brocious, and Jack Stone are going to be 3 of the current commits that are going to be here on Saturday. Also, big name is Jaden Mangum, in-state 4-star DB. He's not going to be an easy guy to get, as there's a lot of West Virginia momentum, but he's definitely somebody worth trying for, as I know we have both said that he's probably the most polished DB in like Michigan State's target pool that's remaining. And Jeremiah Caldwell, the Belleville 4-star DB, is also visiting. Some 2023 guys that should be there are Brennan Parachek, who's a very good tight end from Dexter, Michigan. Cole Dellinger, who's a Clarkston offensive lineman. Ryan Creda, offensive tackle from Ohio. Defensive end Jalen Thompson from Cass Tech. He's one of Michigan State's bigger in-state priorities for sure. And like we touched on in the past, even though he's from Cass and Michigan State hired Wilcher, yes, Michigan State can still recruit him because as long as he doesn't early enroll, that does not fall within the 2-year timeline. And then Dylan Senda and Jonathan Slack, 2 more in-state offensive linemen that should be there for Spartan Dawg Con. The other 2 guys that are much further in the timeline are Caden Strayhorn and Bryce Underwood. Strayhorn's a guy that has, I believe, 5 Power 5 offers before ever playing a snap of high school football. And Bryce Underwood, I believe, is in the same range of 4 or 5 Power 5 offers before playing a snap of high school football. Every event that I've seen Underwood at, he has been probably the best quarterback. Maybe Dante Moore has been a little better, but those 2 guys are in a tier of their own. And then obviously Strayhorn is the son of Jason Strayhorn, Michigan State legacy there. Corey, anything you want to add about Spartan Dawg Con? I know we can't say too much just yet, even though we've gotten our hands on some of the details. These events are supposed to be a little under the wraps, but anything you just want to touch on big picture there?
Yeah, that's going to be some exciting stuff to come out that we had to hold on to. they have a pretty cool plan in place, and then there'll be a visitor that we aren't able to talk about yet. So there should be some stuff that will surprise a few people coming out of this once we're able to report some things.
For sure. I actually just sent a text to this visitor asking if we can finally make it public soon. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for listening once again, and we'll see you next week.